In the Ars Goetia, Paimon is defined by a crucial trait mirrored well with our own emergency food. Paimon is most loyal to Lucifer. The problem is, we don't know who Lucifer is in Genshin Impact. Is it the Traveler? Or the Travelers being patterned after fallen angels or light-based creatures a dead giveaway of this? Or is it someone else entirely? Someone much more sinister? Or is there no one at all? But today, I argue one important thing. Paimon will not betray us. Or at least, she won't betray us willingly. Today, I'll be breaking down all the hints in Genshin Impact that could bring to light Paimon's endgame in this story. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and supporting me on other socials. I've already covered before on who Paimon could be and who Paimon is. So today, I'll instead be focusing on the more narrative elements that bind together Paimon's fate instead of going off of her design alone. I won't be going off on her appearance or her role as an in-game menu. This video will primarily focus on voice lines, dialogue, and other lore theories instead. So let's begin. Before we defend Paimon's stance, we first need to expand on why we think she's going to betray us in the first place. The age-old theory of Paimon being the sustainer of heavenly principles still resonates with a lot of the lore community. While the evidence of her looking like the sustainer or her bearing the Primogem symbol might not be applicable anymore, it still planted the immense seeds of doubt in the players' minds about Paimon's true allegiance. Take this foreshadowing by Enjo in 2.4. In my opinion, I think this is a red herring, for the sole reason that up until now, there was never a mention of Paimon's betrayal before this, not to mention that this was made by an antagonist. There are two interesting responses by the Traveler here. First is that Paimon wouldn't turn on me, hinting that the Traveler has full confidence in Paimon's friendship with them, which isn't uncalled for. Unlike us who deeply suspects Paimon, the Traveler has no choice but to give Paimon the benefit of the doubt, given Paimon is the Traveler's closest friend, much closer than any of the playable characters. Paimon is the only one that knows about the true history of the Traveler, and what happened to Aether and Lamine when they first met the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles. Paimon is also genuine in all of her emotions towards the Traveler, expressing genuine concern for them and wanting to help them find their sibling.
Zhongli, you're a god. You've lived through thousands of years of history. Surely you experienced the incident?
I cannot say.
Why? You can't even give us a thread of information? This is so important to us. How can you be like that? Our journey's not over yet. Let's get a move on. Time to leave this terrible dark place and get back to the surface where the sun shines bright. If your sister wants you to reach the end of your journey, well then, show her what you're made of. Come on, Traveler, let's go. Paimon believes in both of you, and when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Right? She said we needed to reach the end of our journey. Paimon bets she still has lots more to tell us, and we won't find out what this journey is or where it will end unless we keep going.
You may have doubts about Paimon in the endgame, but you cannot doubt the friendship that the Traveler and Paimon have formed now. But the second one is also pretty interesting. Paimon doesn't really have much capacity for betrayal. Capacity for betrayal can mean that Paimon's personality doesn't have room for betrayal, or Paimon herself doesn't have the resources or power to betray someone. Both are interesting perspectives, but to truly understand this, we need to go back to Paimon's supposed origin. When asked if the Traveler thinks Paimon is human, both of them answer something like this.
You are different from all the others. Are you human?
Well, he is, obviously. Just not a native of Watatsumi Island, that's all.
And you? A human hatchling?
When the Traveler doubts Paimon's humanity, Paimon doesn't doubt and say that she is human either, meaning both of them have an understanding that whatever Paimon is might be more akin to a god, and the Traveler's always been a perceptive character. They saw through fake albedo, they were wary of child, and they even questioned Zhongli if he was an adeptus given his stature. So the fact that they suspect Paimon isn't human, but is willing to trust her nevertheless as a friend, is very telling. What the Traveler knows, we can't be sure either. Maybe the Traveler also thinks that she looks like the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles, but they just don't mention it. Regardless, Paimon's origins are a mystery. She was just fished out of the water by the Traveler one day after 2 months of the Traveler walking through Tevat alone. She offers to be the Traveler's guide out of gratitude, and there they begin their journey. We never really uncover anything from Paimon. The first thing clear to us is that she has a form of memory loss. She does her basic functions like fly, teleport, speak, and other things out of instinct, because she just feels like she can do it.
Hey, do that again! You know, that thing!
Which one?
The one where you make your weapon disappear with a swish, and then whoosh! You make it appear behind your back again!
Oh, that? Haven't you seen that a ton already?
But Paimon hasn't figured out how you do it yet. Could you explain it?
Well, can you explain how you suddenly appear in front of me and then disappear just as suddenly?
Well, Paimon seems to have always been able to do this, but Paimon doesn't know how.
Precisely. I believe that the art of putting my weapon away follows the same principle. Maybe it's this similarity that makes us such good friends?
The blossoms drifting down from the sacred sakura are so dazzling. Paimon heard that those flower petals stay suspended in the air for so long because of being infused with electro.
Is it the same principle behind your levitation abilities?
That's because...
You do know what allows you to fly, don't you, Paimon?
Paimon can fly because of, mysterious powers, obviously.
Got it. Seems like you have no idea. How about we let Albedo do some research? He's good at cracking such mysteries.
Please don't.
Her lacking memories also bodes well with this mysterious dialogue that she said in the 2.2 event Shadow Labyrinth regarding power and memories.
Hey, don't worry. Paimon heard that those with memory loss sometimes start to remember things when they return to a familiar place. Why don't you try going back into the domain?
What's even more peculiar is that Paimon eats a lot. She consumes a lot of things. A weird motif to have for someone that's so tiny, and someone that has an extra-dimensional pocket universe. It's possible that the motif of the more you consume, the more you regain power is at play with Paimon's character. While the food itself isn't a sign of power, or anything powerful, think of it like this. The traveler consumes powers from the statue of the Seven to regain their old strength and use the statue as a battery. Chikitaisho consumed old parts of himself to regain his memories. So what if Paimon's gluttonous actions are a metaphor for how she must consume to regain her old powers? Quite a weird one, honestly. But the gods do also criticize that she eats a lot more than you would normally consider.
There's never a dull moment traveling with you. The only minor inconvenience is that pesky little pixie thing that follows you everywhere. She never stops eating. I can't begin to imagine how much you spend on food.
You speak of the young adeptus of Guili Plains. Still fulfilling his duty to this very day. Please, give these painkillers to him on my behalf. Oh, and be sure not to let Paimon eat them. Nothing of this world can withstand the power of this medicine.
I mean, this is a joke. Just a joke that the mysterious floating pixie next to you is strangely a glutton. With maybe multiple stomachs.
So here in Mondstadt, alchemy is practiced out on the streets?
Is that so strange?
In many of the worlds I've been to in the past, alchemy has always been a secretive art. Watching alchemy being practiced as a part of daily life is like being in a world where people have 3 stomachs.
Paimon thinks only having one stomach is weird.
Are you serious?
What do you think?
Additionally though, Paimon's hinted, maybe as a joke, that she equates herself to a god.
Maybe that god has been crying all this time because they were bullied.
Crying? I don't think gods can cry. I mean, I've never seen Venti or Zhongli cry before.
There are exceptions. If you pinch Paimon, you'll be able to see a crying god.
Are you a god?
Paimon sure is.
Okay, let me guess. The flying god of silly questions? The god of slimes? Or the god of being fished out from the water?
While the god of protection is most likely not true, the fact that she's somewhat aware of her divinity separated of humans is particularly interesting. Paimon herself is just following instincts without really knowing about her past. But maybe she just knows that she's something greater. Maybe she is a shade of Celestia. That would explain her similarities with the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles without equating them to be the same character. It's a really weird thought, honestly. Paimon clearly has so much more than what she's showing us. Or maybe she's just not capable of showing us anything in the first place. I think it's an important question to ask, why is Paimon with us? What is the purpose of something divine guiding something who is recovering its power through the journey? Paimon and the Traveler meeting was always fated, something that they both joke about. Paimon says that they're fated friends, but the reality of that is questionable. But I believe that Paimon's purpose was already dictated long ago by this important phrase regarding the god of time. It could very well be possible that Paimon is simply a shade of a god, a shade planted into the Traveler's story in order to guide them to the right path, therefore cultivating the story until they reach the very end where the Traveler's powers are returned to them, seeds of stories brought by the wind and cultivated by time. One of the reasons I dislike the Paimon's betrayal ending is that while it is very plausible, it's quite boring and predictable. There are too many hints as it is for this twist to become impactful. It's like when Tartaglia was revealed as the big bad of Liyue, when in reality the Traveler and Paimon have consistently made it clear that they knew he was up to no good. This is the same relationship with the player and Paimon. There are so many theories of Paimon betraying the Traveler, but the thing is, Paimon is a character that has shown great care to the Traveler from the very beginning. When a person says betrayal, we have to take into account willingness, and for Paimon, it's horribly difficult to say how she'll react once she returns her old memories and her status as a god. However, I don't doubt that Paimon's friendship with the Traveler is genuine, that if Paimon ever gets her memories back, it will be her own decisions whether she follows her principles and return to her celestial origin. I've mentioned that Paimon might be a shade of a higher god in Celestia. In Gnosticism, there are creatures known as aeons, which are various emanations of the superior god or monad. In Genshin, we know that there are 4 shades of the primordial god of Tevat. Istaroth, the god of time, is one of them, but the other 3 are currently unknown. But what is known is that the other 3 don't particularly care for humanity as they abandon the people of Enkanomiya to wither away. If Paimon was a shade as well, then this journey she has with the Traveler would be her own way of learning about humanity. Maybe she can grow the same compassion as Istaroth for the humans, given that she is now friends with someone equal to, or maybe even greater than her power. But when Paimon regains her memories, it's only a matter of time if she forgets the friendships she makes along the way. If Paimon is the final boss who simply saw all of the journey as nothing more than a grand plan, then the story disregards all the years that Paimon and the Traveler authentically had a friendship. It would be poor storytelling. Poor in a sense that twist villains cannot work without a proper catalyst, a 180 in personality which just feel empty and undeserved. It would be the antagonization of a character that never really had a real reason to be a villain, but I doubt that she would. Instead, Paimon would be forced to fight the Traveler without her own consent. In the 2.2 event, Shikitaisho also worries that what if he was created to fight against humanity or that he was created for an evil purpose, to which Paimon responds that as long as you have good in you, then you're not really in the wrong here, are you? But nevertheless, Shikitaisho was willing to sacrifice himself and fight the Traveler in the event that he was created for a worse purpose. If Paimon too was simply a puppet of Celestia, then Paimon's internal turmoil of being the Traveler's friend and sticking by her origins would feel much more rewarding. What we might end up seeing instead is Paimon rejecting her celestial origins to protect the Traveler, a matter of nature versus nurture. Paimon has always prided herself as being the greatest companion, and I don't doubt that Paimon would need to be horribly forced by another celestial entity to betray the Traveler in the first place, be it brainwash, amnesia, or simply removing her emotions. You don't just suddenly remove years of companionship. My theory is that when we do meet the final Paimon, when Paimon stops using Paimon and perhaps starts calling herself I or me, it'll be the final test of friendship that the Traveler must face. If Paimon is forced to fight the Traveler, then it'll be a sorrowful fight, where 2 people that grew close to one another have no choice but to kill. If Paimon was made to forget all of her travels in Tevat, then it's the throwaway of a character for the sake of a twist villain. If Paimon helps the Traveler with her newfound powers, then there would be a new meaning to emergency food.